This is Dolynny TV, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another Oilers discussion here on the channel. As I'm going to dive into three players the Edmonton Oilers obviously need to look at trading this offseason. I've mentioned all three a million times over, but in case you're aware, we're going to break down exactly why these three players are such keys to be traded. One, of course, I wouldn't like to trade because I'd like to see him have a successful year in Edmonton, but at the cap hit, what's happened his past few years in his career, it makes sense to just clear out and get that cap space. So without further ado, let's get right down to it. Number one being Brandon Manning. Guys, this is an absolute no-brainer for the Oilers. Brandon Manning came over from Chicago in what was a trade I tried to defend and explain, and it just doesn't work because Brandon Manning, a disaster of a player when you start talking Edmonton Oilers hockey. And, well, you know what? Realistically, I'll show you his NHL totals here in just a second because very critical trade in terms of how the rest of the season was going to go, if you get where I'm going with Brandon Manning, because it pretty much set the tone for the incompetence that was Peter Chiarelli's exit in Edmonton and then the eventual we can't do much to solve this problem this year kind of deal with Keith Gretzky as the interim, Bob Nicholson doing the interviews, and the mess that was our last, January to pretty much April of the hockey season. So these are Brandon Manning's stats, guys. Absolute disaster of a deal at the cap hit he currently is at, hold on, let me get there, currently at a $2.25 million cap hit for the upcoming year. Guys, we can't afford that. I will always, anytime the Oilers go to sign someone, go to do anything, I always put the asterisk, we gotta trade Manning first. And I'm going to come down on Manning very, very hard here. Problem is, he's still worth the seventh. You know what? If any team's going to bury him in the minors, you bury him in the minors. He's worth a little bit less. And, of course, you give up a seventh. You can do it. You can do it. It's the way hockey works. Don't kid yourself. Guys get traded for... AHL guys get traded all the time. Heck, I'd take Brandon Manning for a guy like Robin Norrell, who we also acquired in the Manning trade, who will never play an NHL game in his life. I have no problem with that. I have no problem. Just clear this guy off the books because this is A, the Connor McDavid situation. Can't afford that. B, he's not going to play in Bakersfield. He was the seventh defenseman in the AHL to end the year last year. That's because Bakersfield has a very good defense. Don't kid yourself wrong. Brandon Manning can still play AHL level defense. And B, C, wherever I'm at. Guys, 2.25, it just don't work. It just don't work at all because you think about what we could do with 2.25 sitting at just under $4 million in cap space right now. We could very easily get ourselves a Ryan Dzingel out there on the free agent market right now. And yeah, we'd be looking a little bit more dangerous than we are. So that's Brandon Manning. That's number one you got to trade. Obviously not a hard one to figure out right there if you've listened to the channel long enough. The next one, number two on the list, 35-year-old Kyle Brodziak. That's the tough question for him. He's been in Edmonton now 1 year. I was excited about the signing considering what he had done dating back, to the year previous where he had 33 points in 81 games with the Minnesota Wild. Let me get his stats for you before I start talking all fancy about them, and then we'll get going. So Kyle Brodziak, the other guy we should have been excited about, kind of, in that whole depth scoring mess, didn't do much at all to get the depth scoring going, did he? As you see, those are his stats right there. He had 20 points in 73 games, 11 points in 76, 15 in 69, 33 in 81. Guy absolutely exploded at 33 years old. And then at 34, came in 9 points in 70 games played. I mean, if you want to use the excuse he was playing hurt a little bit as a fourth-line grinder, center, face-off guy, yeah, no problem. I'm fine with that. But at 9 points, guys, that's not going to work on an Oilers team last year, and that's not going to work moving forward. Kyle Brodziak, not a crazy cap hit to be worried about, but when you consider the production, when you consider what we've got rounding out for bottom six, you consider Colby Cave only at $675,000, you can keep him around. Well, you know what? $1.15 million in cap hit, you don't need that. That again frees up just over, well, right there, the magic number, $5.15 million in cap for the Oilers. You'd be uptight. You'd have only about $1 million left, but you'd be able to go out there and sign a Ryan Dzingel type, considering what Marcus Johansson signed for today. So, and again, Kyle Brodziak, not the greatest option. Out of the three that I'm listing, Manning, Brodziak so far, and the third guy, Brodziak's the least of the worries, to say it bluntly, but still $1.15 million in cap hit. Imagine if we didn't have Benoit Pouliot on the books for the buyout, right? We could be doing a little bit of damage. We could have gone big game hunting on July 1st, but we didn't, thankfully, and we're good to go. So that's Kyle Brodziak. That's the simple solution there, is just trade him. You know what? Again, somebody's looking for an NHL bottom six, or even an AHL leader in the dressing room, and Kyle Brodziak, if you get him over there, maybe playing with his buddy in Winnipeg, in Mark Letestu, Lakeland buddy, I don't know if they're actually friends in real life, but they're born from around the same area, or if you go around and trade him somewhere close, right? Somewhere down in California, let him lounge out and over the winter. I don't know. There's a couple of options, and you just have to evaluate them. And guys, that's what I want you to do. I don't want Ken Holland to do it right now. I want you to evaluate the options in the comments below. Give me a list. We'll go talk about number 3 now. Let me boot him up at $3.15 million cap hit. This could actually end up being a steal this year if he performs as well as I'm hoping he does. Sam Gagner, of course, came back to the Oilers after all those years away. Ended up being traded. When was he traded? In the offseason of 14-15. Went to Arizona, Philadelphia, Columbus, then Vancouver, and found his way back to the Oilers. The guy had, well, you know what? 25 points for the Oilers last year. A great season for him, or 25 games, 10 points. A great bright spot for the Oilers. I guess not a great season, but a great bright spot to at least salvage something out of the disaster that was Ryan Spooner, and B, at least give us something to cheer about towards the end of the year. So there you go, Vancouver Canucks. He played 3 points total in a 7-game span, so 32 games, had 13 points. I'll give you what that is over an 82-game schedule. 13 divided by 32 times 82, that's 33 points. So Sam Gagner had 33 points in 82 games played. If he would have played all 82 this year, not a bad go, especially for a guy in Edmonton who played everywhere from the 4th line to the 1st line for the Oilers this past year under Ken Holland. So keep that in mind. Guy was all over the lineup. The Oilers were all over the map last year. But Sam Gagner had a $3.15 million cap hit. You know what? If you're the Oilers, you want to clear that out. You want to get somebody else in the top 6 instead of having another bottom 6 forward. Gagner is that perfect prototypical 3rd line center, right winger, whatever you need to combo him as at this point of his career. Maybe you don't want that because you've signed that in Granlund, you've signed that in Yurko, you've signed that all across the board and everybody, right? Gagner or Kara, or Chiasson. You've signed it. You've signed it already, and you don't need to sign it again. Gaetan Haas, Joakim Nygard. I'm missing a guy. No, I'm thinking of Mike Smith, so we're cool. We're covered. But you see where I'm going with it, right? It's 3.15. Do you really need that in your bottom 6, especially if you're stuck paying Lucic $6 million next year? 3.15 frees up $6.15 million in cap space to get that top 6 forward. Again, the name Ryan Dzingel pops into mind, right? Suddenly, crap, there we go. We've got ourselves a possibility. So for the Oilers, a guy who's not that far removed from a 50-point season, does he have the value? Obviously, he should. You should be able to get a low-grade prospect, a 4th-round pick, something of value for Sam Gagner. Obviously, yeah, there's going to be the attachment of the Jordan Eberle deal, but with Ken Holland, that has to die. That has to die with Ken Holland. You can't live on Peter Chiarelli's mistakes through this GM, the next GM, the GM after him. You can't. You just can't keep doing it. So it's got to end here. And with Sam Gagner, it could. So guys, that's my explanation. 3 guys. You trade all 3. That's 1.15 plus 3.15. That's 4.3 plus Brandon Manning's 2.25. That is $6.55 million in cap space tied up in these three guys. What do they add? Not much. So let me know. What are your thoughts below? A, should we keep Gagne? B, where do you rank these three guys? I would rank it very easily. Brandon Manning's got to be number 1, Sam Gagner 2, Kyle Brodziak 3. That's the priority list. Now, obviously, in terms of production list, who needs to go first? It needs to go Manning, Brodziak, Gagner in terms of production. But how do you think it'll go? Do you think we'll actually move anybody? Or are we just going to sit here lame ducks in the summer and not do much? I know that's the dark attitude. I don't like taking that approach, but if you are, let me know. I like trying to pick your brain on it. So let me know in the comments section down below. I'm Tyson, this is Dolynny TV. As always, I will catch you in the next one.